It's the 29th of May, 2017. We're at Wembley Stadium for the 2017 Championship Playoff Final between Huddersfield Town and Reading. Christopher Schindler is about to take Huddersfield's fifth and possibly deciding penalty in a shootout that could finally end the game. But what's the significance of this game? Why are we here at Wembley? What are these fans thinking? What's he thinking? And why is Patrick Stewart, of all people, here for this game? To understand the context and impact of what's about to happen, we need to take a deep dive. Okay, so what's the point of this game? This is the Championship Playoff Final, dubbed the richest game in football. Why? Because the winner of this game will be promoted to the Premier League for the start of the next season. A guarantee of over £180 million no matter where they finish. Premier League winners Blackburn, Manchester City and Leicester City have all been to and won the playoff final at Wembley. It's a good thing that they were introduced in 1987. Originally a two-legged affair played at each team's home ground until 1990 when it became a one-off game at the old Wembley. Since then, the Football League's showpiece event has been held at the National Stadium, apart from 2001 to 2006 of course, as they were in progress of building the new Wembley Stadium. So that's why we're here. Now let's meet the two teams. Reading have been here before. Formed in 1871, the Royals have spent most of their existence in the bottom two tiers of the Football League. It wasn't until 1986 when they finally made it to Division 2, the 80s equivalent of the Championship, with record goalscorer Trevor Sr. firing them to 2 promotions in 3 years. After a relegation in 88, Reading were back at this level in 1995 and finished in an impressive second place. Under normal circumstances, Reading would have been promoted to the Premier League. But due to the Premiership's restructuring in 1995, only one team was promoted automatically, which meant Reading had to go through the playoffs, where they met Bolton in the final and lost 1-0. But 11 years later, Reading secured that elusive promotion to the Premier League, achieving a record 106 points, which still hasn't been matched to this day. Reading and their fans got to experience the joys and riches of the Premier League, but following relegation, Reading suffered yet another Wembley heartbreak, losing 4-2 to Swansea City in 2010 after being 3-0 down at half-time. Once again, Reading responded by winning the league in 2012, and 5 years later, they're back, hoping it would be a third time lucky and a third spell in the Premier League. Something that Huddersfield Town have never felt. Formed in 1908, Huddersfield had success very early in their existence, picking up an FA Cup in 1922 before winning the league championship for 3 successive seasons. The first team ever to do so, and have only been matched by Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United and Manchester City. But that would be the last major trophy Huddersfield would win to this day. They played consistent Division 1 football up until 1952, and apart from a few more years in the 50s and 2 years in the 70s, Huddersfield Town have bounced between the 3 lower tiers of the Football League, meaning no taste of the Premier League whatsoever. Fans watched and waited for their turn as they saw 5 of their Yorkshire rivals all enjoy at least one Premier League season without them. Unlike Reading, Huddersfield are a lot more successful in the playoffs. Their first trip to the final in 1995 was led by Neil Warnock and featured club legend Andy Booth, where they beat Bristol Rovers 2-1, thanks to goals from Booth and Chris Billy. When 2 relegations undid that effort, they returned to the final in 2004 in Cardiff, beating Mansfield Town on penalties. Despite losing a final in 2011, Huddersfield Town returned a year later to defeat Yorkshire rivals Sheffield United, again on penalties, which took them to the Championship, where they've struggled for the first 4 seasons. Despite pulling off a miraculous escape from relegation in 2013, with 2 wins from their final 3, they have never finished above 16th place in their first 4 seasons in the Championship. So, how on earth are they in the playoff final? In fact, how are Reading in the final? How the hell is this a Championship playoff final? In the last 2 years, Reading finished 19th and 17th in the table, whereas Huddersfield finished 16th and 19th. At the start of the season, if you'd said these two teams would have contested the playoff final, you'd have been sectioned. This drastic upturn in performances is mostly thanks to these two men and some of the smartest signings in Championship history. Jaap Stam, the former Manchester United and treble-winning defender, took over Reading at the beginning of the season, from a successful spell with Ajax's B team. Along with Stam, Reading brought in Jan Kermorgant from Bournemouth, talented midfielder John Swift from Chelsea, and young defenders Liam Moore from Leicester and Tyler Blackett from Manchester United. All four signings played pivotal parts in Reading's successful, yet weird season. It started off slow, with 1 win in 4, followed by 5 games without defeat, then another run of 1 win in 4 games. 5 straight wins saw them into the playoff places, where they never left for the rest of the season, despite losing another 9 games. Reading had the second best home record in the league, and no team lost fewer games at home than their 2. But away from home, Reading were average at best, losing 11 of their 13 games on the road, and some of those losses were batterings. 4-1 at Brentford and Newcastle, 5-0 at Fulham, and a 7-1 hiding at the hands of Norwich City in April, when they were already planning for playoff football. Reading finished the season with 64 goals conceded, the 8th most in the league, 1 less than relegated Blackburn and 7 more than relegated Wigan Athletic. Still, good enough to finish 3rd, and meet an informed Fulham side in the semi-finals. After a KG 1-1 draw at the Cottage put the balance in Reading's favour, a Kermorgant penalty in the 49th minute of the second leg gave Reading a 1-0 lead. The Royals went on to deal with waves and waves of Fulham attacks as they were played off the park by the West London side, but they held on and booked themselves a trip to Wembley. David Wagner was appointed by the Terriers in the back half of the previous season, kept them up, and along with his German connections, Huddersfield brought in 4 players from lower leagues of Germany and 5 magnificent loan signings. Loaned in were Elias Kachunga, who'd go on to be their top goal scorer of the season, Aaron Moy from Man City, Casey Palmer and Isaiah Brown from Chelsea, and keeper Danny Ward from Liverpool. They also brought in Germans Colin Quainer to play up top with Kachunga and Narky Wells, Chris Lowe at left back, and at a centre back pairing of Michael Heffeler and Christopher Schindler. Huddersfield's season was just as weird, possibly even weirder than Reading's. They started off the season on fire, leading the way after 8 wins from 11, but then they won 1 game of their next 8, before losing just 1 of their next 14 games to put them firmly in the promotion hunt. But in the spring of 2017, they won 5 out of the last 13 games to somewhat comfortably finish in 5th place. Remember when I said Elias Kachunga was the club's top goal scorer? Yeah, that was just 12 goals. Huddersfield struggled to blow teams away. Of their 25 wins this season, 22 of them were by a single goal. Their only wins that were by more than a single goal margin were the 2-0, 3-1 and 3-0 wins over Ipswich, Brighton and Norwich. Their 56 goals was the lowest in the top 8, and they conceded for fun as well, all together to have a negative goal difference. Huddersfield with -2, Reading with +4, whilst playoff rivals Fulham had +28 and Sheffield Wednesday had +15. Speaking of their rivals, Huddersfield struggled against them too. Fulham put 9 past them over 2 games, Wednesday beat them twice without conceding, and they split the series with Reading. But they've made it to Wembley. How? In the first leg against Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield dominated and really should have left with 1 or 2 goals, as they kept Wednesday to only having 3 shots all game. Izzy Brown spurned this chance that fell to him in the box. Wells's chip was tipped over the bar and somehow put this chance well over. In the return leg, Stephen Fletcher's header gave Wednesday the lead early in the second half. That was until a pass by Quainer was directed into his own net by Tom Lees to give Huddersfield the equaliser. In extra time, both teams had their chances, but the tie eventually had to be settled by a penalty shootout. And that's when on-loan keeper Danny Ward delivered when the lights were bright, saving from Sam Hutchinson, then the deciding save from Forestieri. So that explains how we have these 2 teams in this incredibly important game. And in this game, it was tight and uneventful. Heffeler was inches away from getting his head onto a Moy cross, and Izzy Brown stuck this great chance wide. Reading had their chances too. Chris Gunter headed over in the second half, and Gareth McCleary saw this shot just go wide in extra time. And that was it, 0-0 after 120 minutes. For those who may not have noticed, Huddersfield Town has played a combined 330 minutes of playoff football this season, and not one of their players has scored a goal. Yeah, weird game. As both teams played out a stinker of a final, there were more nerves as the teams entered the penalty shootout. Both teams scored their first penalties, Kermagant for Reading and the left back Chris Lowe for Huddersfield. Danny Williams slotted his home, then stepped up the centre back Michael Heffler, and a poor penalty easily stopped by Ali Al-Habsi. A strange choice putting two defenders as your first two takers. Liam Kelly's rocket gave Reading a 3-1 lead, and now the pressure was on the Yorkshiremen. They finally sent out a striker in Narky Wells who shows no nerves and keeps Huddersfield in the shootout. Reading sent out Liam Moore to try and put them one step closer to the Premier League with a single kick, which he sends well over the bar. Yikes. As Aaron Moy tucks home his penalty to tie the shootout, Reading sent out their fifth taker, Jordan Obita, who simply has to score against Danny Ward, the semi-final hero, who's still waiting for his pivotal save in the final. Well, as Obita takes his penalty, Ward guesses correctly and saves it. Advantage Huddersfield. The camera pans to two men showing two drastically different body languages. This is Dean Hoyle, a lifelong Huddersfield fan and current chairman since 2009. He gained his wealth from founding and owning cards and gifts chain Card Factory with his wife. He is bricking it. Not only is there a lot of money at stake, but his boyhood team is on the brink of the Premier League. This is Patrick Stewart, the world famous actor who starred in the Star Trek and X-Men movies. He's made the trip here to witness his boyhood team achieve something Hollywood couldn't write. Up steps Christopher Schindler, the fifth penalty taker and the fourth who'd only joined the club this season. Patrick Stewart rubs his hands together. Hoyle cannot watch. Schindler steps back, takes a deep breath and stares at the ball. The man who'd only joined in August is about to take a penalty that would complete the ultimate fairy tale. The team who'd struggled in the Championship for the past 4 seasons, who had a negative goal difference, claimed to be the weakest of the playoff teams, the team who'd never played in the Premier League, and the majority of these fans had not seen them play top-flight football in their lives. Okay, let's step back and witness this historic moment.
Christopher Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance! The fairy tale season has